I'm Kayla Spelling, Kentucky-born, wild-haired, green-eyed, and endlessly creative. By day, I'm a photographer and a videographer, but by night, a midnight designer, always chasing the next story to tell. As an Aquarian sun and a lifelong creative junkie, my passion for visual storytelling has taken me across industries, working with incredible minds who push the boundaries of art, media, and self-expression. But what drives them? What sparks their journey beyond the 9-to-5 grind? That's what we're here to explore. This season, we're diving even deeper into the creative universe: spirituality, writing, tattooing, culinary arts, travel, music, media, and so much more. Expect surprises, real talk, and inspiration to fuel your own creative path. So, are you ready for another wild ride? Let's do this. Welcome back to Season 2 of the Creative Junk Podcast, Creative Junkies. I am beyond excited to kick off the season with a very special guest, Rob Dorgan, who you may remember from our December 2023 episode. Back then, Rob and his partner Steve teased a project that Rob had been working on for years. Well, the wait is finally over, and I am so thrilled to announce that the book, Awakening the Mystic, is almost here. Or if you're listening to this, a couple of days later, it's here. In today's story, we're diving deep into the spiritual journey, a captivating story filled with hope, the transformative power of love, and the healing magic of the divine feminine. Awakening the Mystic follows the life of Ren Devlin, a yoga teacher whose life is completely transformed when his practices unlock the impossible, leading to a miraculous event witnessed by hundreds. Suddenly thrust into the limelight as a spiritual healer, Ren's world becomes a whirlwind of dreams, deep meditation, and encounters with the gods and goddesses of the zodiac, guided by Saturn and Venus. But as Ren grapples with this newfound fame, he's forced to confront deep-rooted challenges, from reconciling his Catholic upbringing's views on LGBTQ+ issues and women to battling his own ego and fear of death. It's a powerful tale of spiritual healing, self-discovery, and the courage to face our deepest fears. Rob Dorgan's journey is just as fascinating as the one in his book. With a master's in European history and a lifelong passion for storytelling, Rob's path took a major turn when he delved into astrology and yoga, shifting away from academia to study under renowned teachers like Linda Goodman and Alan Oken. His work with yoga, astrology, and meditation have been life-changing, and you'll hear how these practices influenced not only his writing, but also his personal journey. Now, Rob is back here with us to share all about his debut novel, Awakening the Mystic, the process behind its creation, and, what's next for this incredible project. So grab a cup of tea, get comfy, and get ready to hear from Rob as we dive into the magic, the mysticism, and deep wisdom behind his powerful new book. I have to say, I have been waiting to do this interview ever since you told me that you were writing a book. I seriously have been so excited when you guys first told me that you were working on this book, and now it's here. Like, you've manifested it, you've done the work, and now it's here, and I am so excited to talk to you about it.
Yeah, and I'm excited that it's here too, and to talk to you about it, because you've known basically since the very beginning when it was just like a thought. So that's kind of a full circle thing. It's very cool. Yeah.
Yes. And so for people who are listening in on this episode, we did do an interview with you and Steve, your partner. It was like one of our first, I would say I think third or fourth episode or something on the podcast. So for those of you who do want to go back to that episode, you can check it out. But for this one, I think it would be nice for you to go ahead and again, give your background and kind of just like things that you guys have been doing the past few years and like leading into you starting this idea. Like, where did this idea come from, and go from there?
Yeah, and I like doing that because I want to, in an interview like this, I want to encourage people to maybe step out of their comfort zone in some respects, because I never thought I was going to actually write a novel. Like I've written In my background, I have a master's degree in European history. I taught. I mean, that's like ancient history for me. But I've been writing my whole life and little short stories just creatively. But, it wasn't like I had this dream about writing a book like some people do. And, background wise, like I was saying, I went to graduate school. Then when I got out of graduate school, which I quit graduate school because I had this epiphany that I wanted to do more than just that. So that's when I got into astrology and yoga, quite accidentally with both of them. But they became my spiritual outline in life, those two things. I grew up Catholic, and that just wasn't working for me, organized religion. So yoga and astrology just captivated me, and I started studying them like I had studied history before that, and became an astrologer and then a yoga teacher. And Steve and I together have had many incarnations. We talk about reinventing ourselves all the time in our life. We had a retail store. Then we moved to Colorado because I wanted to dive deeper into astrology and worked with Linda Goodman. If you don't know who she is, just look her up. She was one of the first people to really bring astrology out into the open back in the 60s and 70s. And then we worked with her in the 80s and 90s. And she, really piqued our interest in astrology. Then with yoga, it was just more the movement at first. And then I really got into the philosophy of yoga. And then Steve and I took that and we have started doing retreats. So we do some retreats internationally and then domestically in the United States. And they're healthy living and how to change your mind. And just, it's basically the concept of our retreats is how can you live your life more contently? And giving tools, meditation, which is a big part of the book, is a big part of our lives, yoga and meditation and astrology. So that's how the book basically came about. It has a huge, the influences of our life, astrology and yoga, spirituality, make up what happens to the main characters in the book. So it's interwoven. You learn a lot in the book as well about those things. It's not so in depth that you're oh, whatever, but it gives you little tidbits, I think. And what we've heard from people who have read this before it's come out, the readers who we've asked to read it, they're God, that makes me so much more interested in astrology, or it makes me more interested in yoga.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that answers that. That's kind of the background of the setup.
Yeah. And I really wanted to make sure that you talked about that because you're right, and how really everything that you guys have been doing, your whole spiritual career really has shaped this book so much, which is really cool. And, just to also reiterate, I have been on one of your retreats, and I think this is pretty much what your feedback that you've been getting from other people and saying, and also to just with the notion that when I went on the retreat with you guys, it was just a weekend retreat. There was some yoga. But it was focused on love, which was the beautiful thing about that workshop, right? So that was the main focus. And it wasn't you had to be an amazing person at yoga. You didn't have to be super awesome at meditating. I think what was really beautiful about that experience was connecting with everybody with the same intention, but also not feeling like I was lacking in any way, regarding yoga, for example, in experience, everybody was super cool. And it was literally look, we're just stretching together and just being one with ourselves, it's cool, do whatever you can. And that's how you guys teach. And I really, really appreciate that.
Well, I'm Kayla, I'm really glad you brought that up because, a lot of times people do think, oh, yoga, I've never done it, or I can't do it, or whatever. You're right. We teach from a place our background is in being able to modify yoga for any body, and so even on the retreats, that's what we do. We try to meet you where you are
Mm-hmm.
And if it's somebody who has had very little yoga, but they're interested in moving their body, then we'll make it work for you. And especially because the two of us are always in the classroom or on the retreat, one of us can teach and the other one can help people modify or find something that they can do. So I'm glad you brought that up, because our goal or the way that we approach this is, how can we give everybody something that helps them?
Yes.
How can they find a practice for themselves that's accessible for them? Because otherwise, if we're comparing, or, we look at YouTube or whatever it is, and we see all these perfect bodies doing yoga, it's beautiful to admire, but for most of us in our lives, that's not reality.
Right.
So finding it to be accessible is a big deal, like what we do in yoga and meditation. And even with astrology, the classes that we teach there, we try to make them accessible for people who maybe don't know anything, but they have the interest.
Yeah, I was really going to add to that with meditation, specifically in that retreat. I think just the world, that the generations that we are in right now, it is age of Aquarius. We've got technology at our hands. So we're just not rooted in general. And so I feel like it's a lot harder for people now to ground and to really focus. And I think we also make up the excuse of meditation is too hard. Like, I don't have the patience for that, or, you know what I mean? And your retreat made it so easy for it to be embraced as a good practice. And it was like, you saying, like, even if it's 2 minutes that you're literally just sitting with yourself in quiet, that's 2 minutes that you were with yourself, as opposed to not doing it at all. And then you just build up to it.
Right. And because what happens is it becomes its own form of addiction to you, because when you find out how relaxed you get by getting quiet and kind of quieting your mind, you find that you're more relaxed in the day. And honestly, it allows your creativity. Now I'm talking some stuff that's like neuroscience here. If our brain is completely turned on all the time, there's no room for new and innovation to come in. We literally have to, without not sleep, but consciously remove ourselves from stimuli and just allow yourself to chill out. A lot of us say, oh, chilling out for me is watching TV or watching some videos. Your mind is still engaged. So how can you step out of that? And like you just said, start with 2 or 3 minutes and build up from there,
Yeah, exactly. So going off of all of this now, and you in the very beginning being like, hey, I never thought I would ever write a book. How did this even come to be? How did you this is something I need to take off with and do this?
Well, I have taught yoga teachers through yoga teacher trainings, and it started there. I mean, it really was an inspiration, a flash, a vision, however you want to word it. When I was driving on a Sunday morning to a teacher training, and I was on the Columbia Parkway in Cincinnati, and I was listening specifically to a rendition of what's called the Gayatri Mantra. And it's just about opening yourself up. I mean, there's lots of interpretations of it, but this beautiful mantra, I'm chanting it. I'm on my way to class. I'm thinking that I have to teach that morning, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly it just starts in my head, this vision that happens on the parkway. I just kept driving, of course, and get to the studio, but it was like something I'd never experienced. I mean, the visualization, the characters, all this. So I started typing. I got into class, and the lead teacher that day was like, you know what? I don't really need you for like 3 hours or so. I should have told you. I was like, no, this is great. I go into her office and I typed. Yeah, I typed for 3 hours, not knowing literally what was going to come out. I was just like, oh my God. Because like I said, this wasn't a story that I had going on in my head, like, oh, I should write a story about this part of yoga or whatever. It just, boom, it happened. And I will say, with my maturity, I've gotten better at listening to the universe. So I knew this was something different. This wasn't just, a little inspiration. This was like, I became driven to write everything down that was coming through me.
Yeah.
So mystical experience for an author that wrote Awakening the Mystic? Yeah, maybe so.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, that's like the quick version of how it came about. And then I wrote for the next couple years, not really knowing what I was doing because I still was, never like, oh, I'm going to write this novel. It wasn't until I had like 220,000 words that finally Steve and a friend said, what are you going to do with all this? This is such great stuff. And that's when I decided to put it together and see how it would go as a manuscript for a novel. And here we are, days away.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so wild. So can you talk to me a little bit more about the process? The thing that I think was really good for this episode is for a lot of people who are, especially they're aspiring writers, right? And I think there's a lot of roadblocks there that we give ourselves when we're in that creative process and we're writing, and that perfectionism comes in, and things that we kind of struggle with that. So I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on that and kind of your process with creating this story. And then also too, you guys made a decision between self-publishing and then going with a publisher. So I'd love to also hear more about that and kind of like how you came to the decision you did.
Yeah, well, one of the big things that you brought up is self-doubt. And interesting, the characters, there's a little memoirishness to the book at the beginning. So the main character, whose name is Ren, is very much me in some respects, but becomes quickly not me. Okay. But, and I have a lot of self-doubt because a lot of perfectionism in there. And to say that I was ever going to write a book may have had a lot to do with that. Like, there's just no way. I read a lot and I find these incredible writers that I get addicted to, and I read everything. It's like, I can't compare myself to that. That's one of the big lessons I had to learn. But we all have a story, and we should tell it, because our stories, whatever they are, even if it's science fiction or whatever it is you want to write, or a memoir or whatever, it's like our stories help each other, and we have to get rid of the self-doubt. Now, we may need some help. When we finally decided to go with the publisher and the editor, I, instead of getting insecure, and believe me, I talked myself through this, looking in the mirror. She's here to help you. It's not that you're supposed to be perfect already. This is why she's here, and I let myself get into the process of listening to her, but also knowing that it was my story. So I would say, well, yeah, but this is how I've seen it. This is how I want. So it was this collaboration back and forth because of her expertise, but it was my story. So I had to be confident in that way, if that makes sense. But I also had to be open to somebody could help me present it a little, like, for instance, just one example is you find that you start repeating things that you don't realize you've repeated, and an editor will say, okay, you've said this particular point several times. Give the reader some credit for paying attention. You only need to do it once, or maybe once with just a small recap. And I was like, because as a former teacher, a college teacher, you're always, and even in yoga, you're always reiterating over and over and over.
Yeah, to get that to people remember, to get that reminder of, sink it in. Guess what? It's that time. Time to hit pause and catch a special message from one of our awesome sponsors. Step into a world of magic and rejuvenation with Wicked Obscura, a women-owned apothecary and candle shop based in Covington, Kentucky. As one of the proud owners, I can tell you, we pour our hearts into everything we create, blending nature's power with spiritual wellness in every handcrafted product. Our candles, made from a coconut soy blend and infused with herbs and crystals, offer more than just an unforgettable scent. They bring peace, magic, and good vibes into any space. With crackling wood wicks and safe ingredients, each candle fills your home with a touch of light and enchantment. Are you ready to experience the true essence of Wicked Obscura? Use code CreativelyWicked for 15% off your next purchase. Shop at wickedobscura.com and let the magic begin.
So I was doing the same thing with the writing. I mean, that's just one example of how I got some help with it. But just going back to the overall, what you said is it's dealing with your self-doubt, and I think also it is not comparing yourself. Like I am, when people say, oh, do you have great, expectations on this? I'm like, really, I've gotten to the point where I've done this creatively for myself and then the collaboration between Steve and I feel really good about it.
Yeah.
I would love for it to find the audience that also connects with it, but I'm okay with whatever happens. And I think that takes a lot of pressure off of us.
Yeah.
Because all we read about in newspapers is like this one book that just came out. I'm not going to name books, but the one that it's the biggest splash. It's the this. I mean, good for her and good for all the other authors. But what does that creativity do for you? And I think taking out the expectations of greatness is really very helpful, and really doing it for your creative self.
Yes.
That's when I really did that. It opened a lot of doors for me because I had never been this intensely this creative in a way. I kind of suddenly got people who I have to paint. I have to be creative. I mean, it's opened this door. I have to write now, which, wasn't always the case. I journaled a lot, but now it's like, no, I want to create this way. It's a part of me that I need to express. So if I'm giving any kind of advice like that, it's like, get rid of the self-doubt about your story. Know that you can write something, however it is in your genre or however you want to write. Don't compare it to anybody else, and ask for feedback and be open to it. Ask the right people. Does that pretty much hit what you were asking me?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think this is just a creative person's problem in general. I mean, I can say the same where it's like, I have a YouTube channel, Cafe Crashdown, for those of you who don't know it. I'm a huge fan of horror and sci-fi. I'm very passionate about it. I love it. I love the psychology behind those two genres. They've done a lot for me in life, which sounds weird with horror, but truly. And and so I have a YouTube channel doing this, but creating this YouTube channel and even this podcast, it was the same thing where I had a lot of self-doubt because I was comparing myself to other people. I'm like, oh, I don't have the equipment that they do, I don't have the set that they do. Oh, but their delivery, it seems like it's better than mine or whatever. And then, it just got to the point where I hit that roadblock and I was like, I just want to do this because I have fun doing it. And either people are going to watch this and have fun with me or they're not, but I'm going to have fun with it. And you're right. Yeah. You just have to get to that point where you're like, F it. Like, I'm doing this because I want to do it. And either you guys like it or you don't, And,
it sounds, oh, it's simple. You just make that decision. No, it's a process. It's got to come out of your heart. You've got to trust yourself. You've got to trust your own creativity. You really have to trust that what you create is good.
Yeah.
It doesn't need anybody else's approval.
Yes. And with this podcast too, with the focus of it, it's about like what fuels your fire. So like you were saying, you were like driven, it was like you couldn't stop yourself. Like you had to write. It was just like pouring out of you. And that was a fire that was burning in you that it just needed to happen. So it's like, if you're feeling that in your life about something, go for it. Like don't stop you. That's your soul telling you this is what you need to be doing.
Yeah. And then, I believe that the universe opens doorways the more we say yes to it.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal when we say yes, because probably for most of you listening to this and Kayla and I, it's like like you said, there are always roadblocks. Well, I don't have this. I can't do this. I can't. It's like, you know what? That list is always going to be there.
Yeah.
You've got to step away from the I can't, I don't, and sometimes it takes making sure that you have a circle of people around you who say I can, that are an example to you of what they've done, or bring people around you who feed your creativity, or at least, help you to tap into yours,
Mm-hmm.
So having the right people around you is also very important. I mean, I've had to say to some friends when I've read them the book, I'm like, because I've got some friends that are super critical and who I see in their life and I love them dearly.
Yeah.
But they're not doing things in their life because, well, I couldn't. It's not perfect enough. I don't do this. So when I finally shared pieces of the book with them, I had to say to them, look, I know that you have a great critical eye about life. That's not what I need to hear right now from you.
Yeah.
Okay. I just need to share this with you or not. There are some people in my life I have not shared much of it with. They're going to read it. So it's a big deal too. Making sure you have people around you that feed you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And again, it's that being that constructive criticism, right? It's like we definitely, you should get feedback from people, but there's also a good way of going about it. And those people who are those healthy relationships that, if they're going to give you any kind of criticism, it's something that it is more positive, and it's more like, I just want this to be even better for you. And this is how I'm viewing it or how I'm rating it, to let you know from my perspective, but also do you,
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes like with writers, what I'm learning is it's good to give it to somebody who's not in your genre.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's really cool. One thing I just want to add real quick that's along this line is in the book, the main character's name is Ren Devlin, and he deals with self-doubt constantly. Even after what everybody else thinks is like, oh my God, wow, he becomes this, he's still dealing with self-doubt. In my personal case, I don't think that will ever go away, but I am dealing with it differently. I'm having a different conversation with myself. Like, yep, could be, but you know what? I'm going to do this anyway. So that's a big thing that's happening with me through putting this book out there.
Well, let's go ahead and talk a bit more about the book. Could you just kind of give us kind of a summary, just an overall vibe of the book and for what readers can look forward to in reading your book?
It's definitely a spiritual quest, but it's in the context of a normal person's life. And the circumstances that the character I was telling you about, Ren Devlin, early on in the book finds that he's this very much introverted yoga teacher, teaching his small classes of students or whatever. And then a situation happens that the world basically proclaims as a miracle. He doesn't know. He's not saying that it is. But this whole situation blows up to the point where he is just looking at the world completely different. He was on this very quiet spiritual quest, and now he's being thrown out into the world and facing a lot of ego. In the yoga world, through the sutras and that, for any of you who have studied it, there's 5 cliches. And so And I don't want to get too heady with it because it's not this heady in the book, but the cliches, one of them is ego, and another one is attachment, another one is aversion. And they're all the things that all of us, whether we know yoga or not, are facing in our life that get in our way of being happy. Like the ego is the thing that talks to us about the self-doubt. It'll build you up in one sense. Oh, you're doing great. You've got this book coming out. And the next thing it'll say, why do you think you should be doing this? But I mean, it's like a schizophrenia in our mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then with the attachment and aversion, you find yourself, oh, I really like that. Oh, I hate that. I like this. I like that. It's useless. I mean, does it really matter, your preferences? But until we think that way, we don't realize that all of that's just getting in our way. It's taking up our time and energy. So he goes through this whole journey with the cliches. And it's basically, he's guided because he does know a little bit of astrology through his deep meditation. That's one of the things I want to say is Ren has been meditating for decades. So he goes into these deeper meditations where he's led by his astrological council. Basically, his natal chart comes to life as a council of gods and goddesses. And they are guiding him through this journey. And they challenge him. There's some lovely parts about love and happiness, but they challenge him to stretch himself. He is constantly stretched, thinking that he can't do it. He's like the every person, it's just, I can't do this. What if I can't face this? What if I'm not good enough? What if I'm not? And they're encouraging in some respects until he's like into the fires of these challenges and he has to see how he's going to come through them. So that's kind of like a quick synopsis. Does that hit what we need to hit, or do you need more?
Yeah, no, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Like, let's get the book, let's open it. No, that's really great. And honestly, I'm just all about like things are meant to be when they're meant to be. And I feel like this book couldn't come at a better time with just everything going on,
You know what? Can I just piggyback on that for a minute?
Yeah,
because
of course.
I wanted this book to come out at least a year ago, if not 2 years ago. And there were some issues. And then with the publisher, I had to change editors, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But what happened was my expectation, it is now coming out now. And I feel the same way.
Yeah.
We need a story of love and hope.
Yes.
There's a section in the book where Ren's partner, Sean, says to him, he goes, I'm just so depressed right now. And Ren's like, what's going on? What's going on? He's like, well, I keep reading the news and I keep reading the newspapers. And he goes, we're so divided. The whole world is just divided against each other. He's like, they're killing love.
Yeah.
Oh God, it just brings tears to my eyes to think that we could ever think that we could kill love, because we can't. But my point is that we can't. And that's part of this story. No matter what we're going through, love cannot be killed. And what we see and what we feel and what is reality is it is the strongest force that we can ever experience.
Absolutely.
So I do now feel, okay, my muse, I say to her, it's definitely a her, my muse. I'm like, okay, I'm still getting used to listening to you, because I was very disappointed that it didn't come out last summer even. And, but now I kind of know why.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we need it more now than ever.
Yeah, I think you just really nailed it. I've really just noticed that with so many of the things going on, and it's all noise, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do that whole just detach from it, kind of like where you're just eating popcorn and just kind of watching it take place, kind of a thing. But being someone who's empathetic, that's really freaking hard to do. It's just, it's so awful. And and just to see how people react to other people in a negative way, like when they have an emotion, it's like there was a celebrity who was crying on their TikTok feed or something. And it was about the deportations going on with the Mexicans in the United States. And no matter what you believe politically, that's irrelevant. The fact that people were bashing her because she was crying and, making it political and all this stuff is what hurt me, because I'm like, this is someone who just genuinely cares about people being deported and, taken from their homes, children, right? Children who felt settled somewhere are now being taken out of this place. They're being thrown into a plane or whatever and taken to somewhere that they don't even know where they're going to be taken to. That's terrifying. That's awful. No matter if they're illegal or not, like that's a very horrible situation. And she was just crying because she was upset, feeling that for those people. Like that's bad. To show love and caring to that situation. Like that's what blows my mind. And I feel like that's where a lot of people's mindsets are nowadays. And so I am with Ren in that regard, where it's like, gosh, like, it's like, it feels like the world is just at each other and the lack of love there. But you're right. Like that's the thing. You can't get rid of that love though. It just
No.
totally overpowers everything.
No, and we're being fed fear, and we're being fed anger. We're being fed all those emotions that seem like and they're easy to access, you know? It's like
Yeah.
because we don't have to have a personal emotional attachment to them, or I guess we do. That's where it becomes so strong. But it's like, you know, even those people underneath it, there is some kind of love they have for something.
Yeah.
I firmly believe if they could just tap into it and look at it in a different way. But yeah, and I think her comment was, I guess empathy is just not a cool thing to express right now. And you know what? We have to.
Absolutely.
We can't
Exactly.
stop. We have to
Yeah.
stop, we have to make sure that we keep love and joy in our lives. We have to keep it alive because that's part of life, and we can't let anything or anyone rob that from us.
Next book title. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
Can't kill it.
the chapter in this current one is called Killing Love.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Hey there. I know this conversation is super intriguing, but let's hit pause just for a sec. Here's a quick message from one of our awesome sponsors. Some places are divinely chosen to hold secrets that cannot be explained. Haunting, spectral entities, and mysterious energies lurking in the most unexpected corners of the world. At Mysterious Adventures Tours, we uncover these hidden wonders with mystical, curated travel experiences guided by passionate experts who are just as captivated by the unknown as you are. And here is a twist. I myself am a tour director for this amazing company, so you might just find yourself exploring these incredible mysteries with me by your side. Ready to create unforgettable memories on an adventure like no other? Satisfy your wanderlust and learn more about our future tours at mysteriousadventurestours.com. It's time to step into the unknown and embark on a journey that will leave you spellbound. I don't know. Is there anything else that you want to add just kind of about this book or any anecdotes to aspiring creatives out there? It doesn't even have to be writers, of course, just other people who are creating things for their lives in general, kind of moving forward.
Yeah, really tapping into your creativity is important. It really builds the energy in the whole world and the universe. I mean, it's, so many, and I was in this kind of camp that I don't have time for it, Really, it's what we should make the most time for. I mean, the artists of old who were kept by patrons and people who have I'm going to live completely aesthetic because I need to do my creativity. As a super Capricorn that I am, I used to think, oh God, I'm way too practical for that. Just get a job and blah, blah, blah. No, I get it. It needs to come out. It needs to feed you. It makes you healthier. The whole thing, some form of creativity. And that doesn't necessarily have to be writing a novel. It could be writing for yourself. It could be writing your best journal entries. It could be painting. It could be like with what you're doing with podcasts and creating whatever it is that you do. But make sure to give creativity its space in your life. And don't let anybody tell you that it's not worth something. And really feed that for yourself, and especially get rid of some of the self-doubt that might surround it. Because each of us, our creativity is individual and it's important to the whole.
Yeah.
So just keep building that creative muscle and moving forward, and we feed each other. You never know who you're going to affect. You may never know because they may never tell you. And if you're lucky enough that someone comes around and says, oh my God, I feel like that class or that book or that painting or that podcast, I feel like you did it just for me, then you're given a gift to help you move forward. But even if you don't get that kind of feedback, just know it's happening, that you're affecting the world in a positive way if what you're putting out there is coming from your heart.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that all being said,
Yeah.
why don't you let everybody know when your book is coming out? I think we mentioned it briefly, which in the intro I did mention Awakening the Mystic, but maybe just to reiterate, like the title of the book, when
Okay.
it comes out, and maybe some events that people can look forward to seeing you guys, and if they're in the Northern Kentucky area. And I know you guys mentioned that you will be doing some other states in the future, which I can post on our social media about that if anybody wants to see you in the future. But
Yeah. So the book is called Awakening the Mystic, a novel of cosmic love and healing. And the official publication date is February 27th, 2025. So we're down to weeks away from the official publication date. Very exciting.
yes.
It will be available through independent bookstores. It's really going to be available anywhere, but I'm really pushing people to use their independent bookstores. I always do, but it's also available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Just let me, if you're a person that's just like, I don't have time to read or whatever, or, the big audiobooks are now taking off, and I totally get it, is I recorded the audiobook myself.
Oh, great.
It's my voice. I didn't record it myself. It was through a studio. But if reading's not your thing, let me read it to you. I promise I'll keep it interesting. And so events, the launch is at a bookstore in Newport, Kentucky called Roebling Books. It's at 11 o'clock on the 27th. And we picked that because of a special chart. I also do astrology. So we picked that. That's the official launch of it. I'm doing a theatrical performance that is basically full, a couple nights at the end of the month. The reason I bring that up is that will eventually be a YouTube video.
Oh, cool.
That will post. And that'll be me doing excerpts and talking a little bit more like we've talked today, like how did it come about, the background of it, and then me reading some excerpts from it. But we also have an event at the local Joseph Beth here in May, and I apologize, I don't have the dates in front of me. But Joseph Beth is I think it's May 3rd in Rookwood Commons, and we're doing the Taste of Elm is over in Ludlow, Kentucky. This really cool deli. She does food and drinks. It's a Sunday afternoon from 2 to 4, and that's March 9th, I believe, 8th or 9th, whatever the Sunday is. A 2-hour kind of event where we eat and drink together, and then I will read some excerpts. We're also doing a couple yoga studios because the book has so much yoga in it. I'm doing a reading at Embra Yoga Studio, which is in also over near Hyde Park, Columbia Tusculum. That's where it is. And Shine Yoga, which was where I was teaching when this whole thing began, and that's in Hyde Park. And then we're looking at some further out events. I want to go back to New Mexico, so we're talking to a bookstore there, a bookstore in Chicago. And so as we update that'll be on the website. Okay. But one thing that real quick is that on our website, and the Awakening the Mystic has its own website. So it's awakeningthemystic.net. Then my website, my partner and I have a website that is robandsteve.co. And on either of those websites, we have produced little teasers about the book. So if you're visual, you might want to pull up those teasers. They're really cool. I am, of course, playing Ren, just to make it clear that that's what's going on. Is that it's Ren. They're little excerpts from the book. They're like anywhere from 40 seconds to like a minute or so long. And they just bring little pieces of the book to life. And that's been really fun being creative. Talking about creativity is taking it into like a different medium has been really fun.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much, but check out those websites for future dates. And, you can help me out big time by leaving a review on either Amazon, even if you don't buy the book on Amazon. But if you go onto Amazon and review the book, and the same thing for those of you who are in the Goodreads community, if you could, put it on your list and, review it, that would also be very helpful. So I think that's pretty much it.
Well, Rob, this honestly has been so great. I mean, it's always a pleasure getting time to sit with you and chatting. And I always love when I come back to the States and have time with you and Steve, and we get to talk about these awesome philosophical and spiritual things together. But now to know that a lot of that is going to be put into a book and shared with everybody, the whole collective, whoever it connects with, is just really exciting. And I know how hard that you have worked on this. And I'm so proud of you for doing it, first and foremost. And I'm so excited to see what you created.
It's great being on here with you. I agree with you. I love the energy when we're physically together, but I can feel that here on the podcast. And just bringing this out to the world, I will be honest that I'm a little nervous, but because, like I've said, I've been really dealing with this self-doubt, I just feel like there's an audience for it. And I hope that maybe somebody that's listening today will read part of it and be inspired somehow. We all need to just kind of inspire each other and find the things that inspire us and just keep building our energy upward and believing that we're exactly where we need to be and that things will work out, because love is powerful.
Exactly. And on that note, thank you for being here, a guest on the Creative Junk podcast. And for all of you out there who have been listening, we are sending so much love out to you. And please just keep creating. More than anything, just keep creating, keep sharing what you are creating to the world, because it truly is special. So thank you guys. This podcast is brought to you by Mind Junk Creative, a creative agency that brings your wildest ideas to life. They dig through your mind junk to uncover those throwaway thoughts and turn them into bold, unforgettable brand stories. Ready to discover your story? Head over to mindjunkcreative.com and give them a follow on Instagram for all the creative goodness. What an awesome conversation with Rob today. And such a huge thank you to him for sharing his journey, the magic behind awakening the mystic, and his deep insights into yoga, astrology, and spiritual healing. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely feeling fired up to dive deeper into my own spiritual practices after hearing this. But before you go, don't forget to check out all of the links in the episode description and show notes on our website, creativejunkpodcast.com. There you will find ways to connect with Rob, explore his work, and get your hands on a copy of Awakening the Mystic. You won't want to miss out on the magic he's bringing to the world. And here's a little bonus for you. Rob is also working on a sequel to the book, and trust me, you definitely want to be the first to know when that drops. So keep an eye on his social media and stay tuned for what's next. Until next time, keep creating, keep exploring, and keep following your passions, because the world absolutely needs your magic. And hey, don't forget to keep coming back to our website for all the latest updates from our incredible guests on Creative Junk. Trust me, we've got some seriously juicy stuff lined up for you. Ready to join us on this wild creative adventure? Let's go. If you haven't subscribed yet, well, what are you waiting for? You can find me on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, please drop a review and share this episode with your friends. I would be forever grateful. Got thoughts on today's episode or some must-hear stories? You can hit me up at hello@creativejunkpodcast.com. Love this episode? Let's keep the creative vibes flowing on Instagram and Facebook. We'll dish about the latest interviews, swap wild ideas, and catch up on all the creative madness. Plus, head over to creativejunkpodcast.com for show notes and all the juicy resources your creative soul craves. Thanks for hanging out with me. And hey, let's keep the creative party going. Thank you for listening.